Hello, everyone, and we are back with another Authors Impact Hub podcast. I am your host, Juanita Woodson, founder of the Authors Impact Hub. And today we are talking to Miss Terrie Polk to discuss her new book. I always let the authors do their own introduction and share their book titles. So I'm going to pass it to you. If you can just share, let us know where you are from in the title of the book that we're discussing.
My name is Terrie Polk. I am from Mobile, Alabama. I'm currently relocating to the Georgia area. My book and my ministry is called No More Tears. The name of the book is No More Tears as well. This ministry was birthed in tears about 11 years ago now. So this book has been coming up for about 4 or 5 years.
Okay, yeah. So can you share then what led you to write No More Tears and why now? Because you said 11 years. So why now was the right time to tell your story?
Well, 11 years is when the ministry started. The idea of writing a book came maybe about 7 years ago. I have been trying to get this book out for years. I actually had a manuscript that was that I was supposed to get done with this book way back. I told a part of my story on a book called I Am a Black Woman. I was one of the co-authors. I just told a small part of my story. But this book has been in different hands and I just couldn't get it out. And, uh, the person that was helping me with the book a few years ago, they ended up dying from COVID.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's just been a struggle. It's been one thing after another. And
Yeah.
I'm like, this book has to be good because even with now, it was really, really hard getting things together. I know God has a plan and this book will help many people because of my story. I wanted to help people that's gone through what I have gone through, and kind of been dealing with things such as domestic violence.
Okay, yeah. So that was going to be my next question. So can you share a little bit about what the book is about?
The book is a bit about what I've gone through in domestic violence. Basically, how I dealt with it. This was something that started in early in life with me not knowing who I was and who I belonged to, dealing with this in and out of different relationships, and then getting married. It tells a little bit about my first marriage. We were
Oh,
so immature and we were just doing something. We were not ready for this stage of marriage. So we were two broken people.
mm,
And so I write about that. Then I go on to moving forward so quickly to another marriage. And that marriage, the abuse was so bad, things were so bad, it almost cost me my life.
wow.
It almost cost me my mental state. So when I came out of that marriage, that's when God began to deal with my heart and deal with me as a person. And all this time I was going through that, I'm like, God, why am I going through this? Why are you allowing this? But
Yeah,
this was something that I myself got myself into, but I wanted God to remove me from it.
yeah.
And so I tell my story because as I began to heal and come out of the marriage, I began to advocate. I began to speak out. I was no longer silent. I began to help other people overcome because that was my purpose. God was calling me. That was the step to even going into ministry and being free and being delivered. But that was the first step, speaking out and advocating about my life dealing with domestic violence.
Wow. Yeah. So it definitely sounds like a powerful testimony. So not only did you go through it, but you went through it and then now you're advocating for other people, right? But we have to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about what was it like as you're writing to revisit some of those painful moments of your life.
Well, I'll say this to you. When I first, God has the right time. I can remember being part of that book, that first book, I Am a Black Woman. I remember I cried during the entire thing.
Wow.
I was breaking. I went through different battles as I was writing and reliving this. And then the second step, and there were years where I battled in even talking about it. When I would give my testimony, I would be very emotional. I added some things to the book this time, And this time it was like, my God, I mean, it was nothing to it. I'm healed from it. It's been 11 years. So after getting out of that last marriage, I never revisited domestic violence because what I had to do was kind of be to myself and get healed from this life that was normal, somewhat normal to the way that I was living. So this time around, it has gotten better, and I didn't feel anything, and I think that God has the perfect timing because I was very emotional through those years and through those steps, but now it's not like that. It's just telling my story, and by me being free, when you're free from something, it really doesn't affect you. And time heals all wounds. And I'm to the point where that's a part of my life that I found my healing. I found my deliverance.
Yes, absolutely. So when we think about domestic violence, right, and you're sharing your testimony, so what for you was like the turning point that gave you the courage to say, this is not for me, no more of this?
Whew. I tell you, when I got married that second time, it was like it was this was really bad. I can truly say at 54 years old, this was the worst 5 years of my life. And so I got to the point one day where I had had enough, and I talk about it in the book, and I talk about I remember while I was going through this, I kind of or left the church and wasn't going to church and doing things around God and reading the scripture, anymore. So when I kind of got fed up, I began to get back in the word and get back into church. And I
Yes.
went to that's why testimonies are so important. I went to a service one night, and this lady, she came all the way from Texas, and her name is Carolyn Taylor or Trailer. I'll never forget her. And she gave her testimony of what her husband did to her. And I'm like, oh wow. I knew it was kind of wrong, but I didn't know anything about domestic violence or if it was domestic violence. And I'm
Okay.
like, that's me, that's what I'm going through. So it was a light that came on at night. And before I had been telling him, I was like, you gotta go. You gotta go. And he was like, I'm not going anywhere. So after that service, it was something bold it actually had been working for a few weeks. But it
Yeah.
came up that night and I was like, you gotta go. This is wrong. And
Yeah.
we went back and forth and found out he knew that I was serious. And that was it. And don't get me wrong, there was a battle going back and forth,
Yeah.
with him through
Imagine.
the process. But I meant what I said. I meant what I said. I meant that this was the breaking point for me. And I've never been in a domestic violence relationship since that. And that's been about 11 years ago.
Wow, yes. So I know you mentioned it's important to share your testimony, right? So someone shared their testimony and those chains kind of started to break free for you. And then now you're doing that for other people by sharing your own testimony. So how much does faith, right? Because you already touched on it, but how much does faith shape your healing journey?
I tell you, faith is a big thing, and trusting God and believing God and that word. Even some things that I'm going through now that I haven't mentioned in this book because this book was ahead of what I'm actually going through now. I tell you, my faith in God and who He is and His word, and knowing that He has gotten me out of that, something that I put myself in. I'm big on faith. And I know it was nothing but the Lord that had me to run into that woman and be able to hear her testimony that night. You know, I mean, all of this time I was like, how am I going to get out of this? Crying and staying up all night and depressed and not knowing. I was
Right.
able to move in the faith of God. He placed something. I was able to move. I don't care what happened next. I don't care if I can't pay my bills. I don't care if I'm going to have to lose some things. This is it. And that was that faith in God. That was all God. That
Yeah.
was all God.
Yes, absolutely. That's trusting God with the next step looks like when you are unfamiliar with what it's going to look like. So absolutely. So can you talk about how God revealed your purpose through your pain? Because this, I'm sure, so many women and even men, we can't negate the fact that men also go through domestic violence too. But so many people go through that. So how has God revealed your purpose through the things that you've gone through?
I can remember, I can remember that during my process, it was the healing was it was a long thing for me. It was a
Yeah.
lot. It was not overnight. It was years. But in going through, and the Lord began to speak to me, and he began to put me in places, just like how we met. He
Yeah.
began to put me in places where I would be in front of people that I would talk to. And
Yeah.
I can remember my first time speaking on domestic violence. And it was just somebody that I had a conversation with. And they said, we would like for you to come speak. And I began to speak, and began to speak to young ladies, and doors just began to open for me to go and give my voice in regards to domestic violence, speaking to people in my neighborhood. There was a time I would go, and it was so bad in our city, and women were getting killed. I remember going with another lady and standing in front of a local grocery store and talking to people, and they would talk to you. They wasn't
Mm.
do you know what domestic violence is? Are you aware of it? Or do you
Yeah.
know what unhealthy? And God just put me in a place where it was on my heart. It was like something that was coming natural to me. It wasn't hard, and it's still not hard. It was
Yeah.
just something natural. And he put me in place. The way that we met, through my business, through me selling jewelry, even back then, in beginning to be a business owner, I began to find myself again in that business. And that business put me in places where I would meet people
Yeah.
that would share their testimonies, and I was able to share mine, which was a blessing. And I talk about that in the book, how that encouraged me. The jury made me feel like I was beautiful again, because I had lost all of that. I lost all of that. I didn't think I was beautiful. I didn't think I was worthy. I had been called all types of names. I just didn't think that I was enough. And so it was something that really came natural. God began to show me my purpose, because he began to put me in the direction of my purpose. And I had to understand that my pain, and I would cry when I gave my testimony. But as time went on, it really got better, because I'm free from that.
Yes. Freedom feels good. Listen,
It does.
ooh,
It really
especially
does.
when you can help other people get free too. So
It
absolutely. Yes. So can you share a little bit about what your everyday life is like, right? Because the next couple of questions we're going to talk about um motherhood, right? So I kind of just want to introduce, so what is your everyday life like?
So my everyday life, has shifted since all of this. It's I don't talk about it in the book, but I have 3 adult children, and I lost one back in August. And it was kind of due to an unhealthy relationship, what I had been preaching to him and talking to him about, and kind of trying to encourage him to get out of it. And I don't want to say anything bad, about the young lady or anything like that, but it was just a situation that it cost him his life. So
Yeah.
life is different, because now there's a battle that I'm going through to be healed. Because
Yeah.
as of yesterday, that became 9 months for me. So now I'm in another season of healing, because hey, we go from faith to faith, glory to glory.
Yeah.
Things are going to come up in our life that we don't know sometimes. So in a day, it's like, morning prayer, whatever. God, I always ask God, put somebody before me that I can bless. Not
Yeah.
only not only put somebody before me that can bless me, but I also want to be blessed. When I leave the house, I'm learning, when I'm leaving the house, I have to be fully dressed, because I never know who I'm running
You
into.
never know.
Sometimes I have on workout clothes, but I stop where I just run to the dollar store. I understand, when I leave the house, I don't know what time I'm coming back, because I run into somebody that needs a hug, or sometimes I need a hug.
Yeah.
So I'm meeting people that will encourage me. And that's what I'm always looking for, or somebody to bless me, or me to be blessed. When I say blessed, to encourage me during the day. So that's what my day is like, trusting God. My other 2 kids are adults. I have a grandchild, so they have their lives. So my life is really living for the Lord right now. Whatever it is that he wants me to do, I'm willing, because we can't just speak it, we have to walk it.
Yes,
We
absolutely.
have
Well,
to live it.
First of all, well, I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. I know that's definitely not something that's easy to navigate. So
Yeah.
definitely, you definitely have my sincere condolences. But I appreciate the fact that you're taking your pain and you're now pouring back into other people. So you leave the house with a purpose every single day to be able
Yeah.
to touch somebody else's life. So when we think about motherhood, right, and we think about your book, so how did you find the strength to continue going on when you were dealing with so much adversity, even now?
Yeah, with my kids, they're so important to me.
Yeah.
All I can say is the first time that I was married, they were little, we got divorced. It was just, I ended up getting married real quick. So they were growing up, they were getting to be teenagers. They were not in a situation where they actually saw me get beat down. They knew that I was going through some things, but they didn't actually see a lot of it, but they knew something was going on.
Yeah.
Okay. Some of the stuff was mental, some of the stuff was words that they did not hear. But they were they're my people. You hear me, my kids, or I never want to say they're my everything. Look, a couple of years ago, people would ask me my why,
Yeah.
and I would say my children. And I thank the Lord that He's so good because He told me, you can't find your why in people. Your
Mhm.
why has to be something else. And so if God wouldn't have told me that has to be changed, I don't think that I would be strong enough to handle what I'm going through now.
Yeah.
So I had to understand that my why is bigger and it's reaching and teaching. And even in the midst of what I'm going through, that God is so good and I know He's gonna heal me from this. I get up every day and I try to be someone that my children would be proud of, that my granddaughter, that I leave a legacy for her. And she'll say, my grandmother wrote a book. Oh, my grandmother wrote this. And she'll be able to present it to her children and grandchildren. So, I absolutely love motherhood, with a now 30-year-old, 29-year-old still living, the one that passed away would have been 26 in February. I still cook for them. I still love being a mother. Sometimes I just cook and I want them here, especially now. I want them close to me. So sometimes I have my days where I just really want to be that mother, like they're still little small
Yeah.
kids, because they're mine. And the four of us, it's always been the four of us. So we're very close. And I thank God for that. I thank God that we are a close family. And even now, my granddaughter, she was asking me, "Well, Gigi, I want to come with you." I said, "You can't come with me today, babe. I have an interview, and I can't keep asking you to be quiet." So I love her. I love spending time with my granddaughter as well as my children.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. And what do you hope your children will take away from your story? You having the courage to share your story and the legacy that you're building.
They've seen me right before. That they've seen me do interviews. They see me at one time. I had a talk show that I'm hoping I can get back into. And so I think they'll be proud. I think the first time they didn't like it's some things they may not know. They have to read the book.
Yeah.
My oldest son, I don't think he read the first book because he never said anything about some of the things that I talked about. Like, well, I didn't know
Okay.
that. My daughter did, of course. Men sometimes don't read every detail, but guess what?
Yeah.
He supported it, he bought it, he invested in it, and maybe at some point, and maybe he'll read this one, but I want them to be encouraged by me telling my testimony and being able to come out of such a difficult thing. I want them to understand it's nothing too hard for God. And I think that they know that now with our current situation, with, seeing me maneuver because I'm still the mother. So
Yeah.
they're the sister and brother, but I'm still the mother. And I think sometimes that they think that I'm superwoman, which I'm not. And I tell them that I'm not. I feel I cry, but I just want them to be very proud of me and what I'm doing.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm sure they are. Absolutely. You probably make them want to go and write their own book or invest in their own businesses or brands. So, yes, I
Yeah.
love that. So, you built a ministry, right? So, tell us more about your transition and what your ministry does for other people.
my ministry, you know, there's a new assignment. As we grow, there are new assignments. In the beginning, I was out a lot. I was much younger. So I was out in the streets. I was taking women to hospitals. I was picking them up. I was taking them to the shelter. I was mentoring. I was just out more. Um, I was doing events, different events that I was having, not only for women, but for the youth. That was pre-COVID. I usually do different Christmas giveaways, Easter giveaways, prom dress. We collected prom dresses a few years ago to make sure that the children in the community had prom dresses. But we would also minister to them and speak to them about domestic violence. So it was basically awareness. It's still like that. Right now, while I'm in a place of transition and healing,
Yeah.
I think that God is going to also use me
Yeah.
in grief, and even telling my testimony about my son. It's a process. So that's what I think now that we're doing. When he passed, before he passed, he wanted to feed the homeless. They know that I was big on things like this, so they'll say, well, mama, let's do this. He noticed that there were a lot of homeless people in an area here in Mobile,
Okay.
and he stressed it to me before about a month. So I think it was 2 months after he passed, we went out in that community and we fed the homeless.
Yeah.
We fed the homeless. I want to come up with scholarships in his name, and God. In the beginning, I was thinking that my ministry was only women, but as
Mm.
time grew, I understood that this ministry that God has led me to actually be the person in charge. This ministry is more than that, because if we minister to only women and men are still broken, we're not doing anything good, because we're still going to have the same problems. So I
Exactly.
feel this ministry is called to all people. I feel that in the future, my daughter is a therapist and she's finishing up her internship. And I'm sure that we will be doing a lot for the community when it comes to mentoring, when it comes to counseling, when it comes to just being available to give back and help in the ways that we can help.
Yes, absolutely. When I look at so no more tears, you think about that, there's so many different areas where people are hurting, they are grieving,
Mhm.
they're going through something, even people who commit the acts of domestic violence. And listen, let me say this disclosure. I am in no way excusing what those people do, but there's healing that needs to take place on their part, because if there wasn't healing that needs to take place on their part, there wouldn't be forgiveness that we then need to give, right?
You
So,
are absolutely right. And that's the thing, with what we go through and things that happen to us, we have to if we don't get that forgiveness, and you asked the question, how do you feel? I have total forgiveness. And, the relationship that I actually wrote the book on, he has gone to glory. He's no longer here. So I had to forgive him. I had to pray for him right before he left here. He told me, he said, I want to be saved. And
wow.
I said, let's do it. He said, well, I want my wife back. I said, that's not going to happen. If you want prayer, I'm your girl.
Yeah.
But anything past that, and I did, and he accepted Christ. And I
Yeah.
was like, Lord, I thank you. Because when he contacted me and asked me about that, he ended up getting sick and having a stroke maybe a week later.
Wow. Yes.
And
That's
I
powerful.
didn't have any grudges or feel any kind of way about anybody. You
Yes.
know,
So
God
powerful.
has been good to me, and he turns it around whatever we're going through. And we have to understand, I've been a hurting person. And I had to look at things like, I know that there's people that I hurt, you know?
Yeah.
So I want God to forgive me, and I would like for those people to forgive me. But I would like for those people to forgive me. So I have to have a heart of forgiveness. It's
Yes.
hard sometimes, but it's necessary.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes, absolutely. So, what would you say to someone who feels stuck in a cycle of toxic relationships or domestic violence, but they don't know how to break free?
I would tell them, when I was encouraging my son to get out the relationship that he was in, I was telling him, just move back because there's other people involved. So when it becomes where it's three people, it's some infidelity, things like that. I was telling him to get out. But the thing is that I understand because I've been through it, and God had to tell me it's matters of the heart and it's soul ties, and sometimes it's hard for people to remove their self from situations when they're so hard. So the best advice I have for people is you got to heal through the word, and you got to come up with an escape plan, and that escape plan has to be God. And this is the thing: if there are two people and there is domestic violence or anything or there's things that's unhealthy, somebody's cheating on you, you don't have to live like that, but you have to be willing, and you have to be willing to go through the process, to
Mhm.
go through the process that does not look always the way you want it to look. But guess what? On the other side, God has something better for you because God is not in that. So
Yeah.
you have to be willing. I understand the heart, I understand the soul time. So there has to be some deliverance and some freedom that comes to the people that are in it. And so you're not going to get that without God. Always get wise counsel. Wise counsel comes with the word. If the word ain't in it, it's not wise.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. And that's what I call a gem dropper. Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. So, what was one thing that surprised you the most while you were writing your book?
Let's see. One thing that surprised me, you know what? The big that it was me actually doing this.
Mm,
Like, my pastor always talks about that she didn't think that she was capable. Or
mm,
sometimes we have a story to tell, but we may not be a writer, which means that it's a big accomplishment. She always jokes and says, I don't know where comma goes. And I'm one of her. Does it go here? I don't remember. I'm 54. I've forgotten how to do some things.
that's all right.
And so it was like, oh my God, I really did this.
Yeah,
I did this. This is me. This is me and God. This is God in me that lets me know that I don't have to be surprised about the thing that God can do, because He can do anything. He can do anything. And this is really, really something that He did. I take no credit for, but I'm proud of myself.
yes, absolutely. And you should be because it's a major accomplishment. So, what is one message that you want readers to walk away with after reading No More Tears?
I want them to walk away with knowing that change is possible,
Mhm.
that your situation can change with a blink of the eye, that's negative or positive. Which one will you choose?
Ooh, yes. Yes, absolutely. I had to sit and think about that for a second. Absolutely. So how has writing this book impacted your own journey of growth and faith?
Well, with writing this book, being a single woman, if God says the same, I decided to marry again, but it has to be a God thing.
Yeah.
So it lets me know how far I've come, and I'm not desperate. But there were times that I would take anything, and I count on God for everything. I can't make my own decisions. I can't be with who I want to be with. It has to be somebody in God. So it lets me know that I have come, it's like a long ways from where I started from. And
Yeah.
I'm just thankful.
Absolutely. I love when we can trace our growth. That for me is like such a major thing because it just gives you that motivation to keep growing and keep growing, where you can honestly look back and see, whew, I grew through those things. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for taking this
Thank
time to walk
you.
through your journey. So, where can listeners find your book, your business, and connect with you and your ministry?
My email address is no more tears 56 at gmail.com. No More Tears is on Facebook. I am on Facebook as Terrie Ann. I don't have a website right now. I'm working on that. I'm working on getting a website. I'm sure that I'll be calling on some people that I know to help me through the process of setting things up correctly. So I can be found. That is my email address where I receive most of my messages or anyone trying to contact me or get in touch with me through Facebook. My business number is 251-287-5978. I can be reached there. I give it out. It's no big I have two different phones. This is my
Right.
business phone and I also have my personal phone. So, I'm not one that say, well, you can't have my number. I'm very comfortable with giving my phone number out.
Yes, awesome. So what's next for you? Are there any new projects, books,
Well,
events on the horizon?
I have so much. So, you know, one of the projects that I'm working on. So that's I'm excited about that. I'm excited about talking about one of the greatest things, and that's being a mother and a grandmother to me.
Yeah.
So, Moments with Moms. What volume are we on?
Volume 4. Exactly.
Volume 4. So
Yeah.
that's something that I have. I have a few preaching engagements coming up little by little. I'm getting back in
Okay.
that. I'm preparing for one in 2 weeks. And let's see what else. I think I'm going to get back in. I was teaching the Proverbs 31
Okay.
uh, class. I think I'm going to get back to that next semester, which is September. I stopped during this time. So I think I'm going to start back in September through Limitless Church, where I am a member in Fayetteville, Georgia. I'm also working on a grief journal that
Oh,
I'm living through right now. I'm going through the process of it. I have things that I'm writing and I'm living through what I'm going to teach.
yeah.
And another thing that I am working on that I'm living through scripture is my journey with health, wellness, diabetes, and high blood pressure. Because I want to come out whole. So
Yeah.
I'm living through those books right now. And they'll be coming out, I say, in the next year.
Okay, absolutely. I love that you said you're living through it. So it's not just something that you're throwing together. This is something that you're living through. So this is a real raw testimony that you'll be sharing. So thank you so much for this. And I always ask one last question before we wrap up the show, and that is, what impact do you want your books, your business, your brand to leave on the world? Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Miss Terry,
Thank you.
joining
Thank
me.
you.
This has been amazing, inspiring, and I cannot wait to grab a
Amazing.
copy of your books. I'm gonna say books because I know you're working on many great things. So, listeners, make sure that you go and connect on Facebook with Miss Terry. We'll make sure we share your contact information in the show notes as well so that they can contact you easily. And until next time, y'all take care. Thank you.